can handle anything.
Go see your grandma.
So, Fred, and how you living?
Go see your grandma.
And anyone.
Here's my belt.
Al, you're not going to whip them kids.
I'm not gonna whip nobody. I'm gonna hang myself.
The Royal Family.
Tonight at 7 on TV8.
This is KCCI, TV8 in Des Moines.
There are some of the stories you'll be seeing on the TV8 News live at 6. Frost and freeze warnings for Iowa tonight. Many homeowners covering flowers and vegetables. The Backel brothers testify in their first-degree murder trial. Jeff Greenwood will have details on that. And new efforts to hold down Iowa's burgeoning prison population. Liz Murdian reports. Now this.
On the next Matlock, a godfather fights to clear his name.
Here I am defending the head wolf.
Why?
On Matlock.
Tonight at 11:05 on TV8.
Weather forecast, frost and freeze warning, low in the low 30s in the Des Moines area, in the mid-20s in far northern Iowa. Highs tomorrow, upper 50s, highs Friday, upper 60s. Now to CBS.
U.S. warplanes placed on high alert as President Bush again threatens Saddam Hussein. A critical report card on the greening of America. And big questions about an airport meltdown and a telephone company blowout. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. President Bush is threatening Saddam Hussein again. Mr. Bush said today that he will send American warplanes back to the Gulf if necessary to force Iraq to comply with terms of the United Nations ceasefire. Part of the background is the story that CBS News Pentagon correspondent David Martin broke on this broadcast last night, that U.S. Air Force planes had been fired on over the weekend from inside Iraq. David Martin is at the Pentagon again tonight and begins our follow-up coverage.
Warplanes along the East Coast are on alert today, waiting for an order to return to Saudi Arabia as the Bush administration makes preparations to once again use its air power against Saddam Hussein. This time, the plans call not for the all-out assault of Desert Storm, but to provide armed escorts for UN helicopters sent to inspect Iraq's weapons programs. Iraq has been interfering with those inspection flights, and President Bush says he's fed up with Saddam.
He's not going to question our resolve on this. He knows better than to take on the United States of America, I'm sure. So there's no point threatening. We just do a couple of things and then make certain demands, and we think they'll be complied with.
On alert are F-15 and F-16 jet fighters, armed helicopters, and the refueling planes that go with them. About 60 aircraft in all. That would roughly double the number of U.S. warplanes still left in Saudi Arabia from the Gulf War. The Pentagon also plans to send Patriot air defense missiles to protect Saudi air bases from the threat of Iraqi Scud missiles.
It's a prudent course for those of us in the Defense Department to be involved in planning for contingencies. And that's exactly what we're doing.
The president's national security advisor said the operation could be called off if Saddam stops interfering with the inspection flights.
There's been no execute order, and if he will comply with the UN resolutions, there won't need to be an execute order.
Iraq's ambassador to the UN sounded like he is at least willing to talk.
If anyone would like to reach really a constructive agreement, it is possible.
I must strongly protest, and I emphasize strongly.
The confrontation has been building since June, when UN inspectors were barred from visiting a site believed to be part of Iraq's nuclear weapons program. While the UN inspectors were stopped at the gate, the Iraqis trucked suspicious equipment away. Then Saddam backed down just enough to avoid military action. And President Bush thinks he'll do so again.
And I don't think it'll come to that. I think the man will see that we are very serious about this, and he will do what he should have done in the first place.
The president has set no deadline for Iraq to comply, but if Saddam continues to stonewall, Pentagon officials say it would take less than a week to begin the escort operation once the president gives the order. Dan?
David Martin, live at the Pentagon. Thanks. Joining us now from our Washington Bureau, and we're glad to have him back, is retired U.S. Air Force General Michael Dugan, a CBS News consultant on military affairs. General Dugan, good to have you back. What kind of aircraft will we use, and what kind of targets could be hit should the president decide to do it?
Given what the president has said, Dan, I think the first kinds of airplanes that would be important to be useful would be helicopters. Helicopters to bring the teams in are available now. They've been provided by a number of countries. But armed escort helicopters like Apaches would be very helpful. Those are the best kind of escorts. Then beyond that, to back those up, you'd see a mix of F-15s, F-16s. I think AWACS airplanes to provide additional coverage would also certainly be useful.
Senator Dugan, what's your instinct as a career military officer? Is this going to lead to a renewal of hostilities, or is it on both sides or either side a kind of high-stakes bluff?
I think that the United States has maintained since last August great credibility by our policy and by our military steps in this region of the world, and I think President Bush means to maintain that same degree of credibility today. I think, as he said, he's fed up, and he means to shut this off. Will it lead to outright hostilities? Perhaps not, but we need to have the clout, and we need to have the will to employ that clout if necessary in order to maintain that credibility.
We have enough ground forces there to back up any airstrikes?
The ground forces are rather modest, certainly compared with what we had there back in January and February. And once you pursue one of these lines of attack, indeed you need to protect the forces that you bring in with Patriots. You need to protect the Patriots with some additional support forces. And so a great deal of potential ground force is probably on the list of options that are being studied.
Senator Dugan, thanks a lot for being with us. Now, for context and analysis, we bring in our veteran CBS News Middle East correspondents Bob Simon in Tel Aviv and Alan Pizzi in Damascus, Syria. Good evening, gentlemen. Bob, how are the Israelis reacting to this move by President Bush?
When the Americans beat the war drums against Iraq, Dan, it is music to Israeli ears. The Israelis have been leaking intelligence reports about how much of Saddam's arsenal remains. They like reminding anyone who might have forgotten that they, the Israelis, are in the firing line if and when Saddam opens fire again. But most important, the Israelis would like to see more American anger directed towards Iraq right now and less towards Israel. The loan guarantee crisis was not resolved by the Baker visit. There are signs, in fact, that it could be escalating. Gunfire in the Gulf would provide a diversion from this, if only temporarily. Dan?
Alan Pizzi in Damascus, what does this tension, this new tension with Iraq, do to the prospects for the Middle East Peace Conference?
Dan, it doesn't hurt them very much, but it doesn't help. The Arab leaders don't particularly want to see American troops in action again because that might smack of vindictiveness against Saddam, and their own people wouldn't like that. They had a hard enough time keeping things quiet during the Gulf War. The problem is that the Arab leaders would like to see Saddam humiliated. It was kind of summed up tonight when Farouk al-Shara, the Syrian foreign minister, in a press conference with Secretary of State James Baker, was asked if he would support U.S. troops. He said that the Iraqis were not complying with UN resolutions, and they should. Asked specifically, would he support the troops? He maintained an icy silence and then said he had answered the question. I think the answer is the Arab leaders, would like to see Saddam humiliated. They don't want the peace process interfered with, but none of them are going to go on the record and say, let's go and get Saddam, even if they want the U.S. to do it. Dan?
Alan Pizzi in Syria, Bob Simon in Israel. Thanks. President Bush's new threat had men and women of the U.S. Air Force scrambling to gear up today for another possible round of action. Their families and friends were starting another bout of nerves and another round of questions about why didn't we finish Saddam when we had the chance. Aaron Hayes is at an Air Force base in South Carolina. Aaron?
Dan, I am at Shaw Air Force Base, where officials aren't telling families whether or not they can expect another deployment because they say they just don't know. But people we talked to in town today said that's how it was the first time, and they're worried.
Sumter is a town that knows quite well the effects a deployment can have. During Desert Storm, times here got tough. Nearby Shaw Air Force Base was nearly empty during the war, and news of a possible second round wasn't greeted easily today by families of airmen.
My alarm clock went off, and I woke up to that, so I was like, great, this is not fun.
It's very nerve-wracking. We don't want it to happen again.
Memories of last year's deployment still hurt.
See these goosebumps? It's sad, because a lot of our friends had to go.
It was difficult to go through the first time. We don't, any of us want to go through it again.
Babies being born, husbands couldn't be here.
At a local garage, talk today was split. There were worries about the town's economy getting hit a second time.
We lost a lot of business, and business was real slow.
Others say, though, it may be a sacrifice they're willing to make.
Well, I'm like everybody else. If we go again, we don't need to stop and play around. We need to go ahead and get it over with, period. That's the only way to do it. Just like Vietnam, they played around, didn't accomplish anything over there.
At Shaw Air Base, they're practicing and will continue through the night. They say no orders have come yet for a second shot at Iraq.
We can do it again if we have to.
So I just hope we don't have to.
Right now, Dan, we're told today's flying practice is routine, what they do here every day, that nothing has changed at Shaw Air Force Base. They're just waiting for word. Dan?
Aaron, live in South Carolina, thanks. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, President Bush, the re-election campaign and the environment, the photo op and the record. And later, the men and women who feed America, but can barely feed themselves.
Like to try Total?
Real men eat post-raisin bran.
If you're hungry, takes almost 3 bowls of post-raisin bran to get the nutrition in 1 bowl of Total.
3 bowls? That's not manly. That's nuts.
Well, 1 bowl of Total has 100% of 12 vitamins and minerals.
Smart men eat Total.
Everybody needs some money sometime. Everybody needs some cash sometime.
When you need money fast, only Western Union can get it to over 16,000 locations in minutes. Nobody else even comes close.
Just hold me. My sometime is
Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
If your doctor has recommended Metamucil and you like the results, but you don't like those glasses of thick liquid, change to FiberCon. Get the same fiber action in easy-to-swallow tablets. Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
The Federal Reserve now says that recovery from the recession is spotty at best in some parts of the country, no improvement at all. Now, this Fed report is in sharp contrast to the position of President Bush and his aides that the recession is over and that a sustainable recovery is already pretty well underway. Mr. Bush made a re-election campaign stop in Arizona today, framed around a photo opportunity. White House correspondent Susan Spencer went along for a look at the bigger picture.
The White House machine loves a good backdrop, and to restate his commitment to the environment, the president picked a Lulu, poised at the rim of the often smoggy Grand Canyon, to hail a landmark agreement that will cut the annual pollution here by 90%.
Our administration has crafted a new, common-sense approach to environmental issues, one that honors our love of the environment and our commitment to growth.
The Grand Canyon Pact typifies the administration's favorite approach: negotiation, compromise, consensus, ending with a package environmentalists and especially business can buy. But even critics admit it certainly beats the last go-round.
In the Reagan administration, business had a virtual veto power over what the administration did.
The White House encourages comparisons with Reagan and revels in photo ops of this president tromping around the national parks. Environmental leaders are not very impressed.
Disturbingly, it seems as if he's moving further and further away from being the environmental president the longer he stays in office.
We measured his decisions on air and water and public lands and across the board on environmental protection, and we gave him a grade of D.
On specifics, the president does get some high marks. Environmentalists praise his push for the Clean Air Act, for agreements on acid rain and less polluting gasoline. They laud the appointment of William Riley to head the EPA and the ban on the import of ivory. But the D's and F's go to policies to redefine wetlands, to open more to development, to allow drilling in the Arctic wilderness, to White House resistance to tighter fuel economy standards, and to its support of more nuclear energy.
What's happening is Bill Riley is giving sound advice, making good, strong environmental protection initiatives a priority for the Environmental Protection Agency, and he's getting overruled in the White House.
Have you ever encountered an administration that environmentalists were happy about? I come from the environmental community. I'm very familiar with the fact that if the hurdle is here and the administration gets over it, the next hurdle will be higher.
Environmental groups say Mr. Bush asked for such scrutiny by his stated goal of becoming the environmental president, a title they say he doesn't deserve so far, despite all the pretty pictures. Susan Spencer, CBS News, the Grand Canyon.
Like President Bush, Governor Bill Clinton of Arkansas has not officially entered the presidential race yet, but he is making stump speeches. Bruce Morton reports tonight about Clinton in our series, Listening to the Candidates.
Bill Clinton, 11 years governor of Arkansas, runs as champion of working people, not poor people.
You have working people today that are working harder than they were 10 years ago, spending less time with their kids, with less money to show for it.
And I'm sick and tired of seeing people like you do the best you can and work your fingers to the bone and being deprived of the opportunities you deserve, because we have refused to do what every smart country in the world does. Save more, invest more in the future, take care of our kids, take care of our health care problems, and meet the competition economically.
He calls, like other Democrats, for rebuilding the country's infrastructure.
And we've got to invest in things like roads and airports and ports and bridges and streets that make a country strong.
But running as a centrist, he insists a federal government program is not always the answer. Sometimes, he says, it's up to individuals.
That's why I like the welfare reform bill that requires people to move from welfare to work. That's why I think you cannot be too tough on child support enforcement. I think it is an abomination that so many people believe that they can bring children in the world and leave them for the government to raise them.
And he emphasizes roles for individuals as well as government. National service in exchange for college, for instance.
We should finance a college scholarship for anybody in this country if they'll give something back to their country in national service, as teachers, as policemen, as nurses, in the jobs that we need done in this country. That's an opportunity agenda.
Clinton stresses problems at home.
I want our country to be involved around the world, but there's something wrong when we can give $5 billion to the Middle East, but the president can't find $5 billion for the unemployed in this country, or $5 billion to give every kid in Phillips County and throughout the United States a chance to be in a Head Start program.
Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
Our special series will continue tomorrow when we'll listen to the speeches of Senator Bob Kerrey of Nebraska. Stay here with us now for more from CBS News. Next up, America's vast communication system. What happens when the telephone company gets caught up in its own web?
You know, there's nothing square about prunes. These Sunsweet pitted prunes are not only irresistibly sweet and bursting with flavor, they're also perfectly round. Only one prune tastes Sunsweet.
Doctors know there's a flaw in eggs. They're high in cholesterol, and diets high in cholesterol and fat can contribute to heart disease. Fleischmann's Egg Beaters are 99% real egg with 0 cholesterol and 0 fat. Egg Beaters, eggs without the flaw.
Because sometimes the day ends and the pain doesn't, we're introducing new Tylenol PM. It's more than relief. It's relief for those times when you can't sleep. Tylenol PM has extra-strength Tylenol pain reliever to help stop your nighttime aches and pains, plus a gentle ingredient to help you sleep, so you can wake up refreshed in the morning. From the name you trust comes new Tylenol PM, so you can rest easy.
Good luck up there today.
I don't need it.
What's wrong?
What if my diarrhea comes back?
Relax. You took my Imodium AD caplet.
Just one dose. I usually take the pink stuff 2 or 3 times.
Imodium AD is much better.
Imodium AD caplets are so effective, they often work in one dose, instead of dose after dose after dose, like the pink stuff.
Hello? Hi, hon. I feel great.
Imodium AD for diarrhea, the choice for one-dose relief.
The violator, the victim, and the manhunt. Rate The Crime in the Dark on 48 Hours tonight.
Boris Yeltsin shook up the world for a brief time today when he left work early, saying he didn't feel well. First reports indicated the Russian president might have had a heart attack, but it looks like that's not the case. His spokesman said that it wasn't anything serious and that Yeltsin will be back to work tomorrow. The Space Shuttle Discovery made a middle-of-the-night landing at California's Edwards Air Force Base, came down early because of bad weather. It wasn't the weather that disrupted telephone and air traffic all around the country. Overnight, Harold Dow reports on the spread of chaos by the telephone company.
Federal and state officials tonight are trying to figure out what went wrong. Why an AT&T switching station breakdown in New York City caused a chain reaction that was felt all across the country.
It just went back to the dial tone.
The failure not only cut off long-distance telephone service in and out of Manhattan, but it caused banks to endure delays in transferring funds, and airline traffic was backed up nationwide. It left the government wondering if modern-day systems are too complex.
There seems to be very little communication between the players in this industry regarding very basic, elementary things like dial tone.
The AT&T power outage blew out more than 200 ultra-high capacity communications lines, including those used by the Federal Aviation Administration and its air traffic controllers to communicate with pilots. For more than 5 hours, airplanes could not land at Kennedy, LaGuardia, and Newark airports. Hundreds of flights were either delayed or canceled. Airports in Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Minneapolis-St. Paul all affected, leaving thousands of travelers both without wings and without long-distance phone lines to notify loved ones.
You know a better way to get there? You know where the train station is?
I'll be home in half an hour.
We're all connected.
AT&T likes to boast that since deregulation, its services have gotten better. But in the weeks ahead, federal officials say they may be making some phone calls to AT&T and other telephone companies to put them on notice. Reliability is an issue the government takes very seriously. Harold Dow, CBS News, New York.
What you eating, Dad?
Kellogg's 19. A breakfast of 19 vitamins, minerals, and other essential nutrients. Want some?
No.
Some people go to great lengths to keep the great hearty taste of Kellogg's 19 all to themselves. So if you've never tried it...
Kellogg's 19? Ew.
That suits them fine. Kellogg's 19. Really great taste in disguise.
The experience of buying a $60,000 car is, to say the least, different. You get to walk around a showroom without looking over your shoulder. Nobody makes you have a conversation you really don't want to have. And you're given all the time you need to make your decision. It's a pretty nice way to shop for an automobile. And it feels even better when the car you're looking at costs around $12,000.
What a feeling, feeling fresh.
Fixodent Fresh has a crisp, clean feeling and a stronger hold than any other cream adhesive. A fresh feeling and stronger hold are two great reasons to Fixodent and forget it.
When you're all stuffed up and use an ordinary nasal spray, it drips into your tissue where it can't help you breathe. But not Sinex Ultrafine Mist. Its medicine stays where you need it, so you can breathe the way you want to. We don't drip down, we clear up.
I'm Harry Smith. Are you all revved up for the new car year? We'll show you 1992's hottest new models tomorrow on CBS This Morning. It's breakfast for your head.
The fruits of their labor are on your kitchen table, but chances are you never give them a thought. Migrant farm workers, in some cases overworked, underpaid, and forced to fight over jobs that pay even less than they did 10 years ago. John Blackstone reports tonight's Eye on America.
I worked in your orchards of peaches and prunes, slept on the ground in the light of your moon.
Woody Guthrie wrote Pastures of Plenty 50 years ago. It could have been written today.
On the edge of your city, you'll see us, and then we come with the dust and we go with the wind.
Let me tell you, this is the final proposal. The company says this is it. There is no more. Take it or leave it. I asked him for more money. He said no. And his answer to me is, you get somebody else who's paying more money, I'll pay the same money he's paying.
It's hard to believe, but Pete Maturino, the leader of a small, struggling union of agricultural workers, has negotiated a good contract, even though his workers are giving up more than they are getting.
On the holidays, you guys had 5 holidays. Now he only wants to pay 2. We're at the point now where the employers have gone too far. The employers have brought down the wages too far. There is no benefit, and the people out there, they can't stand it anymore. They can't take it anymore.
Growers who once hired workers for a whole season now increasingly deal with contractors who supply workers on demand, sometimes for a few days, sometimes for just a few hours. The overwhelming majority of those who work on California's farms are not American citizens, which has led one researcher to call them an invisible society, outside the concern of most of us.
I need to work.
I had to pay the rent, and I had to pay my bills. I had to find a work or to work.
For many, the scramble for work begins here. 5 o'clock any morning, a parking lot in Salinas, California.
I noticed they don't ask how much they get paid.
No, they never. They just say you have job, work. Yes. They don't ask for, how much is it. They just go.
By mid-morning on this farm, the grower has all the lettuce he needs. The workers will get just 4 hours' pay today, $22 for their toil. Ishmael Solis is the contractor who hired them.
A lot of people like it. See, if you see on the top of the machine there, they got speakers and stereo. They hear music. They had fun time. Really.
A labor camp for migrant farm workers. Those who live here are the lucky ones. This summer, California farm workers were discovered living in caves, the only home they could afford while harvesting America's food. The suffering of migrant farm workers has been documented again and again. But 2 decades ago, all that suffering was supposed to come to an end. Cesar Chavez of the United Farm Workers took on the growers, and much of America joined him in the fight. But now, many say the leader who was supposed to save migrant laborers has abandoned them.
The President of the United Farm Workers, Brother Cesar Chavez.
Tomorrow, whatever happened to the only hero most farm workers have ever known? John Blackstone, CBS News, Salinas, California.
Ask Angela Lansbury about aspirin-free Bufferin AF Nighttime.
Angela, there's something new here. Bufferin AF Nighttime? Yes, it's from the makers of Bufferin. For when you feel achy at night and you're having trouble getting to sleep. It's for both problems? Uh-huh. Bufferin AF Nighttime should really help. You see, it's a maximum strength aspirin-free pain reliever plus a gentle non-prescription ingredient to help you get to sleep.
New Bufferin AF Nighttime helps put pain and you to sleep.
What does this woman know about dieting that maybe you don't? That you don't have to drink your breakfast, because a serving of Kellogg's Special K actually has fewer calories than a glass of the leading diet shake. In fact, the entire Special K breakfast, including fruit, skim milk, and coffee, has fewer calories than the diet shake. So, if you're going to have something special when you're trying to lose weight, shouldn't it be something special with fewer calories? Kellogg's Special K. Lose the fat.
I think I'll make fresh dressing.
Good seasons?
Mm-hmm.
Which oil?
Pick a light one.
Dressing's great.
Good seasons, you make it fresh, you make it best.
We bake pearls made of denture material in this blueberry pie to prove how powerfully Fixodent, America's leading denture cleanser, removes this tough stain, even in between. Fixodent, stronger than stains.
Good luck up there today.
I don't need it.
What's wrong?
What if my diarrhea comes back?
Relax. You took my Imodium AD caplet.
Just one dose. I usually take the pink stuff 2 or 3 times.
Imodium AD is much better.
Imodium AD caplets are so effective, they often work in one dose. Instead of dose after dose after dose, like the pink stuff.
Hello? Hi, hon. I feel great.
Imodium AD for diarrhea, the choice for one-dose relief.
With the situation in the Middle East being what it is, let's review tomorrow's headlines. President Bush puts U.S. Air Force units on alert as he again threatens Saddam Hussein to comply with terms of the UN ceasefire. The president says the planes could be used to escort UN helicopters searching for hidden Iraqi arms. The president says he is not setting a deadline and he does not expect to go back to war. This CBS station will have more on the story early and late. I'll be back on this CBS station with 48 Hours, a look at the crime of rape and what Americans are doing, what you can do to stop it. 48 Hours, Crime in the Dark, CBS at 10 in the East and West, 9 most other places. Dan Rather. See you again soon on 48 Hours.
This is CBS.
Next on the TV8 News, live at 6, a teenage murder suspect calls a fatal shooting an accident. Jeff Greenwood with details.
Also tonight, concerns about the future of a housing development in Urbandale, parts of which are being built on an old landfill, and a live report on protecting those flowers and plants from tonight's frost.
Connie will have the latest forecast and Heidi the sports. TV8 News is next.
Big dreams in a coastal town.
We're right there with you.
Dreams are what you make of them, and dreams that keep you going.
No matter where you're going.
We'll be there along the way.
With high-octane coastal gasoline and a whole lot more.
Coastal. Big dreams in a coastal town.
Your town's a coastal town.
It ends September 25th. The biggest cash bonus offer in Ford truck history ends September 25th. Everybody gets $1,000 cash back on every pickup in stock. But if you're in business or work for a business, you may qualify for up to a $2,000 bonus on a full-size pickup. With a preferred equipment package discount, you could save over $4,000. And that's before you make your best deal. See your local Ford dealer now, right now, because his $2,000 truck clearance absolutely ends September 25th.
It's stark raving Hoover madness at Kmart. You'll go nuts over the prices, like $74.99 for the powerful Elite Upright or portable Tempo canister. But hurry, Kmart's madness won't last.
The Iowa Theory on TV8.
It's 6 o'clock. And now, from TV8, where news is #1, Paul Rhodes, Kevin Cooney, Connie McBurney with weather, and Heidi Soliday sports. This is TV8 News, live at 6.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. The teenager accused of murdering Clint Allen says it was all an accident.
Michael Bickel and his brother Alan took the stand in their own defense today. Michael accused of firing the fatal shot. Alan accused of driving the van during a chase that led to the shooting death of Clint Allen. TV8's Jeff Greenwood with details.
Why'd you go back and get the gun? To show him, hey, you know, I guess be a tough guy. Scare him.
To the best of my knowledge, and I was very sure myself that he didn't have any shells.
Michael says it was an accident, and younger brother Alan says he was as surprised as anyone when the shotgun went off. The two Bickel brothers charged with the death of Clint Allen in February gave their version of the shooting to the jury. 18-year-old Michael Bickel testified he had one 12-gauge slug in his pocket and had intended to use it just to scare Clint Allen and his friends. Michael said he was angry that Clint had just swerved his car near him.
I figured they're going to get away. I'm just scared. I shot at the ground.
Did you point that gun at that car?
No, I did not.
17-year-old Alan Bickel testified that he wasn't quite sure what was going on. He said Michael just kept yelling at him to follow the car.
I was very, very surprised. I was very, very scared, too.
A weapons expert hired by the defense testified that Michael's shot may have ricocheted. Charles Soderquist is a former Des Moines police detective who conducted his own investigation.
Slug appears to have come from a below and in an upward angle when it struck this molding.
Soderquist's testimony contradicts the state DCI's. Yesterday, a DCI weapons expert testified the fatal shot was a direct hit. The jury will decide whether it was an accident when the trial concludes sometime tomorrow. Jeff Greenwood, TV8 News.
Construction is continuing today at the Sylvan Ridge housing development in Urbandale, but those who are having their homes built there are concerned about their property values. Yesterday, TV8 News first reported that a portion of this housing development rests on an old Urbandale City landfill. That landfill was discovered earlier this month when some of the first basements were being dug. Tests are being performed to determine the extent of the landfill, and it is not known if any of the waste is toxic. Today, those who are building homes in the development and their relatives were out looking at the site after hearing about it on the news, and Chris Nee's property is across the street from the waste that's been uncovered. He says he's concerned about the value of his home that's now under construction.
Yes, most certainly. That obviously, as a homeowner building out there, you're always concerned with your property value, and you want the most value for your land as possible. And Urbandale traditionally has held their property value very well. And obviously, with this unearthed, it could be a problem.
Dave Erickson, an attorney for the developer John W. Grubb, tells TVA News tonight that the seller of the land assured them that it had been used only for agricultural purposes and signed a statement saying there was no known solid waste on the property. The attorney for the seller has declined comment.
68-year-old Robert Depew, the man who is charged with sexual exploitation here in Iowa, appears in federal court in Kansas City tomorrow on a weapons charge. That charge resulting from a raid on Depew's home in Missouri. Meanwhile, investigators here are working on their case against Depew, and TV8's Michelle Parker has details.
New discoveries in Missouri mean more charges for 68-year-old Robert Depew. He's shown here being brought back to Des Moines last Friday on a sexual exploitation charge. He was arrested after investigators confiscated photographs of young girls from this building in Soldier, Iowa.
He's been doing it at least the last 5 or 6 years that we know of, and perhaps longer.
Police continue to sift through the thousands of photographs and other items seized in Soldier. Investigators expect this work to take a while. Besides the thousands of pictures, there are negatives, camera equipment, file cabinets, and other items. Des Moines is handling the case right now because some of the alleged victims are identified as being from the Des Moines area. The pictures show young girls in various stages of dress, some in explicit poses and some nude. Police say they have their work cut out for them.
It'll take us a long time simply to ascertain what we have and then put material together, identify victims, and draw conclusions. So it's just primarily a very time-consuming process.
These weapons and ammunition are part of an arsenal of guns and military explosives discovered at a building in Norborn, Missouri, once operated by Depew. Authorities also found weapons at his Missouri home. He now faces a firearms charge.
We have a very wide range of munitions here, military ordnance. The most unusual being a British 81 millimeter mortar. We also recovered over 100 rounds of mortar rounds.
Des Moines officials will decide later whether any more charges will be filed against Depew in connection with the pictures. Michelle Parker, TV8 News.
Another defense witness says that arson was not the cause of a fatal fire that Dale Ryan is accused of setting in West Burlington last year. Ryan is charged with arson in that fire, which killed 2 West Burlington firefighters. Today, an expert hired by the defense argued that it was a faulty cash register that actually started the fire and caused it to spread. Ordine Anderson used a videotape to show how a similar cash register could malfunction and start a fire. The trial continues tomorrow.
Iowa's Attorney General has renewed efforts to curb the state's overflowing prison population. There are currently about 1,000 more inmates behind bars than the system is supposed to handle. Bonnie Campbell says the problem becomes a vicious cycle when more people have to be released in order to make way for more criminals coming in. TV8's Liz Meridian has more.
Iowa Attorney General Bonnie Campbell toured the women's prison in Mitchellville today. It was her 4th stop on a statewide prison tour to see how bad overcrowding has become. Here in a facility designed to handle 123 women, the prison population is closer to 190 inmates. Mitchellville's overcrowded buildings reflect a growing problem. The state estimates over the next 5 years that inmate population will rise 12%. The more people coming in, the more people must be released, and often before their sentence is up.
If you're convicted of rape, you'll probably get a 25-year sentence, and you'll probably serve 2 years and a few months. That's not long enough, in my judgment. And the people who are being paroled, we know, are high safety risk.
It is not unusual, I guess, would be a good example for us to see a person back 2, 3, and 4 times on one sentence, which means that something is not working.
There are efforts underway to alleviate overcrowding. Mitchellville's prison is adding 2 new dormitories, which will add about 50 beds. But officials say that only meets current demand and does not allow for more prisoners in the future. For lasting reform, Campbell says the state must look at new ways to sentence criminals, like house arrests, and decide whether expanding prisons is worth the investment.
Who's violent and who isn't? Who gets locked up and who doesn't? Who can we punish in some other way? Those are all considerations that we need to look at.
Campbell has appointed a blue ribbon panel to look at new sentencing alternatives and whether to expand Iowa's prisons. She hopes to bring those new recommendations to the Iowa legislature in November. In Mitchellville, Liz Meridian, TV8 News.
You would have a chance to voice your concerns about the prison overcrowding at a public hearing tonight. Runs from 7 to 9 at the Mitchellville City Council. TV8 will have the latest tonight at 10.
And coming up next on the TVA News Live at 6, snow in the Midwest. We'll have the details. We'll take a look. Plus, a little later, County's forecast.
It could be one of the earliest freeze and frosts ever here tonight. What to do about your plants and flowers? I'm Sue Mason. Hopefully we'll answer some of those questions when the TVA News continues.
Brings home the tropics.
Who would think to take 3 strips of sizzling bacon and a slice of Swiss and put them on a 1/4 pound of fresh beef? Who would use the freshest toppings and add a special sauce? And who would serve it all up on a toasted Kaiser bun and call it a bacon Swiss burger?
Me, Wendy's dad. That's who.
Come in and try the Bacon Swiss Burger, only at Wendy's.
Hey, Liz, what's new?
What's new with Liz Claiborne? Lizwear and Liz Sport are new. These rich colors create tremendous fashion now at Yonkers.
Hey, Liz, what's new?
Liz Claiborne fall dresses and Liz Collection are new, now at Yonkers.
Hey, Liz, what's new?
Liz Claiborne hosiery and shoes are new. Plus, there's Liz Claiborne jewelry and accessories. Also find Liz for men, Liz Claiborne for fall, new and now at Yonkers.
I knew it all along.
Tonight's TV8 News Live at 6 is being simulcast on KDLS in Perry and Jefferson, 1310 on your AM radio dial.
Some University of Iowa students say they plan to do more than just cheer for the Hawkeyes at the homecoming game in Iowa City, October 9th against Illinois. Students opposed to state budget cuts say they're organizing a protest in front of 70,000 fans at Kinnick Stadium. Al Beardsley of the Graduate Student Senate says students plan to chant no more cuts throughout the game. Beardsley says the University of Iowa alone has lost $7 million because of Governor Branstad's cuts, and he says it's harming the quality of education.
The first frost and freeze of the season expected in Iowa tonight. If it does come, it will be one of the earliest on record. TV8 Sue Mason joins us now from a Des Moines nursery to talk about what plants and flowers will need to come.